Hi, and welcome back to Crunchy Couture Club, a space for slow and sustainable fashion talks, fashion DIYs, and lots of fun sewing and knitting discourse. So in today's video, I am going to show you around the Sage Pants pattern by Vikisews, and I'll be making the pattern using some very special fabric. This is Deadstock Alexander Wang wool denim that I got from Mood Fabrics. So before we get into why this fabric rocks my world, let's talk a bit about this Sage Pants pattern. So if you haven't purchased a Vikisews pattern before, you might be surprised or utterly shocked in my case that you can only purchase one size for the pattern. The main benefit of this would be, I would say, the assembly of the PDF pattern, because you're only printing out the one size. It's very easy to paste it together and cut it out without having to decipher between a bunch of sizes. But obviously the huge downside of this sales model is that if you're someone who typically grades between two sizes or maybe even three sizes, such as myself, I do this quite often, then you're just kind of out of luck on that typical way of approaching patterns. So before I went ahead and made the Sage Pants in the special Alexander Wang Deadstock fabric, I did make a version of these pants in just a 12-ounce denim and just made them straight up, no mods, and was just kind of hoping for the best. And much to my surprise, I actually achieved a perfect fit on the first try. It worked out in the end with this particular pattern. So a little bit about the Sage Pants pattern is that these are a pair of wide leg, relaxed fit, kind of a low, almost mid-rise pant style. They are, I would put them in the category of pants / jeans. They have all of the traditional and expected features of jeans, like pointed back pockets, a slanted back yoke, belt loops and top stitching details, but the pattern seems like it also could support maybe a lighter weight fabric other than just denim. So I bet these would also look great with some rivets. I just didn't have any on hand that I wanted to use, so I didn't add those to either pair that I made. And as for sizing, the range goes up to a 96 centimeter waist and a 122 centimeter hip. So now let's talk a little bit about the fabric. So as I mentioned previously, this is just a scrap of my fabric, but it is Deadstock Alexander Wang wool denim that I got from Mood Fabrics just on the online store. So I was scrolling through Instagram one day and saw a reel that was posted by Ken Sakata of the brand Front Office, and it was an educational video about the wonders of wool denim and how it's made and what it is. Before I saw this reel, I was blissfully unaware of the fact that wool denim even existed in the world. And despite constantly working with various textiles throughout my journey sewing, never did I consider that denim could be woven from wool. And then I immediately had to track some down for myself. I live out in Colorado. I need a good alternative for cotton most of the time when it gets into those colder months. And I'm someone who is very passionate about jeans and the look of denim. So the fact that I could be wearing a wool instead of a cotton to achieve that same look, I had to have it. So as Ken explains in the video, when we think of the word denim, images come to mind such as this. So it's cotton, it's blue, it's American. What denim actually is just describing a way of manufacturing a textile. So to make any sturdy, non-stretch textile such as denim, individual strands of fiber need to be woven together in some sort of fashion to create that durable, non-stretch or low-stretch end product. Typically, this is done with what's called a plane weave. So that's when your fibers are going basically north-south, east-west, and they're woven together to create that sturdy, durable, non-stretch textile. How denim is made, however, is by taking those same fibers but weaving them in a slightly different way in a style called a warp weave. So what makes a warp weave unique is that instead of weaving the fibers one up, one down, the fiber that typically travels east and west are woven one up, two down, and one up, three down, resulting in more of a zigzag look of the fibers that eventually creates that diagonal line that we can recognize on our own denim pants and our own denim products. With the blue fibers that we typically associate with denim being that more dominant color, so that's what we think of when we see blue jeans, but then there's also that contrast of the white fiber that is appearing as more of a background or in between stripe, so to say, to the blue, creating that diagonal look. Also, as Kim mentions in the video, wool fibers are typically spun and then knit to create fluffy textiles that you see for sweaters, or they can also be woven in a plain weave for things like wool blazers or wool trousers. But when we take those wool fibers and then weave them into a denim fashion, what we get as a result is this super sturdy but also excellently draped fabric that is not totally unsimilar to other wool fabrics, but it definitely lends its own special flair. So as we kind of discussed before about the manufacturing of denim and how it is a warp weave, we can see how this black fiber is kind of standing out against the ivory fibers that are kind of working as that more like background look and eventually creating this like diagonal look with the contrast of the black and white. And I love this choice of color for these two fibers because the contrast is so high, and from afar it kind of gives like kind of like a holographic look. It just like looks so interesting even as just being a super straightforward fabric. Without further ado, let's get into the making of these pants, and I'll show you how these wear around the streets of San Francisco. Let's do it. Let's start first with what you'll need to make your sage pants pattern. You'll of course need your fabric, a lighter weight thread, top stitching thread, a jeans zipper, jeans button, fabric scissors, seam ripper, pins or clips, tape measure, and chalk to mark your fabric. So the first thing you need to do is, of course, treat your fabric by washing it beforehand, and then you're ready to cut out your pattern pieces. So for this pants pattern, because this is 100% wool fabric, what I did was wash it by hand in my bathtub, and then I was ready to hang it to dry and then cut out these fabric pieces when it was 100% dry. This is something that I always take a lot of time on. I never rush it because it's super important to get all of these pieces as perfect as possible. After cutting, of course, you have your ironing. There are some interfacing pieces that needed to be ironed onto some pattern pieces, and then I also just wanted to give everything a nice light iron. So we've got the 3 machine system set up for sewing today. We've got our serger, our regular sewing thread, and then top stitching thread. And so hopefully the 3 working together, it'll be a little more efficient and a little more quick in its process today. So ready to get started. The first step of this pattern was to take care of the back pockets, so that involved just serging and top stitching these back pockets, and so that's what we see me doing here. And also shout out to Vampire Diaries for literally keeping me company for this entire project. That's just me showing you the finished product of the back pockets being stitched onto the back of the pants. And of course at this point, Mr. Blue was interested in seeing what was up in the world of Stefan and Damon, and we had to bring him into the loop there a little bit. pieces for this pattern, I decided to just cut 2 mirrored pieces so that later on I could decide which direction I wanted the fly to open. When I originally made this pattern, I made it to instruction and found that the fly opened the opposite way of my regular jeans pattern that I typically go to. So for this time around, I wanted to be sure to switch the direction, and that's why I cut out 2 mirrored pieces so that I could be sure I was cutting off the right piece. Zipper and doing the zipper fly. So as always for the zipper fly, what I like to do is sew this first with a contrasting bobbin thread from the wrong side so that I can see where I need to sew with my top stitching thread. That's always a good way to approach getting the best looking fly top stitching. However, I'm not so efficient when it comes to my zipper application. I bought a huge order of zippers back in the day on accident from eBay, and I got about 30 of these pink zippers, and I'm just determined to use all of them up before I buy any other zippers. So of course these can be shortened, but for the life of me, I can't get the zipper teeth off of any of them. So what I end up having to do is cut the zipper completely and kind of refashion a zipper stop at the top, just manually with top stitching thread, kind of just sewing in my own stoppers. I do not recommend this at all. It obviously doesn't look perfect or professional, but it is functional, and that's kind of good enough for me most of the time if I'm making something for myself. For one of these final steps, we are just basting on the belt loops, constructing the waistband, and then attaching the waistband before we go ahead and create that buttonhole, install the pants button, and then give these pants a nice hem, and they're ready to wear.